It says now broadcasting, yeah.
Very good. Okay.
We're live.
We're here. Here we are. Welcome. Hello, and thanks for joining us today. I'm going to walk through a little bit of housekeeping for a moment. First, the audio and video on your side will not be playing through. We will be providing a recording of the event as well as a link to a blog post that'll recap some of the key takeaways from today. Along the bottom, you'll see a chat button that is, if somebody could just give me a quick chat and tell me that you can hear me okay, that would be really great. And you'll also see a Q&A button. And as you think of questions, you can pop those into the Q&A and we'll do our best to get through those questions as we talk through today. Oh, and good, I see several friends in the chat. Thank you for letting me know that, that we're all good to go there. So, first off, I'm Barbara Wray. I'm with Wick Marketing. We are an agency in Austin, Texas that for 25 years has been serving builder and master plan clients from California to Washington to Florida. And that area of work is our passion. As you can imagine, 25 years, we have seen a lot of really great highs and some other things along the way too, that I know most of you also have seen. So our topic related to some of those things today is grand openings and figuring out what is next. What I'm hoping that you're able to take away from our time today are some actionable insights that will provide value to you and your teams as you are opening your new neighborhoods and your master plans, and hopefully ideas that will help set you apart from your competition and help you drive results. Joining me today are three people. So Lisa Parrish is Chief Creative Chick, she has the best title in the whole wide world, and partner with Team PMP. For nearly 30 years, Lisa has honed her skills in the management and production of industry events for every size group. She's passionate about providing inspiration to others through a willingness to share knowledge and mentoring others in the home building industry, and I can vouch for that. Her credits include numerous productions, which are the Oscars of our business, including Gold Nuggets, coming soon, the MAME Awards in 10 major cities, and last but not least, the Nationals. Lisa, I'm honored that you were able to give us your time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carol Ruiz is principal at NewGround PR and Marketing. She founded her agency in 2007 as a full-service public relations and marketing agency that specializes in residential and commercial real estate development. She brings 20 years of experience in the field, and during that time has amassed press in publications such as the New York Times, USA Today, Los Angeles Times, and Reuters, just to name a few. I'm pleased to say that her team has worked with our team and collaborated with some work on shared clients, and that's been a real pleasure to do that. And then third, we have, sorry, Carol, I didn't even give you a minute to say hello.
Hi, everyone.
There's Carol. And then Cindy Lowe, Chief Event Strategist and CEO for Red Velvet Events. When she started her agency about 18 years ago, she did so with the mission to outplan, outplay, and outparty. And Red Velvet Events is a boutique creative events agency helping global brands to ideate, design, and execute their own experiential events since 2002. During the coronavirus pandemic, Cindy has pivoted her team of 25 to own the virtual world, which is why she is here with us today. Cindy's a recent author also of Behind the Red Velvet Curtain. Welcome.
Thank you, Barbara, for having me.
Absolutely. So, quick recap before we jump in. Q1 was a lot of fun. We really liked it, right?
Yes.
And then came COVID, and things got brutal for builders, for event planners, for so many people. We saw builders scrambling to become classified as essential. We saw them heavy up on digital tools to be able to help sell homes online, a thing that few had done in the past. We watched them figure out contactless closings and how to manage backlogs and reduce cancellations and move standing inventory. So many things that they had to figure out. But during this last few months, there have been some positives. One, of course, is some really sweet low interest rates that have helped. There's been pent-up demand for homes. And all of this together has really helped to accelerate innovation, and that's definitely been a good thing. But it is time to figure out another thing, and that's the grand opening. And as we watch some new neighborhoods coming online, as we watch some builders, and these plans were in place prior to COVID, to reduce maybe the number of model homes, or maybe even to open some neighborhoods without model homes. The rules are changing, and many of them have changed in a big way. So I would say that it is time for builders to do what we have seen builders do in our world for 25 years, and that is to figure things out. So here to help do that is a panel of 3 women who are they're creative thinkers, problem solvers, they're business owners who have been solving problems for their own businesses as well as for their clients in these recent months. So when you all registered, majority of you said that your biggest concerns were around safety related to the virus, feeling comfortable on site, and managing to that, promoting and driving traffic to events, whether they're in person or virtual, and bottom line, really figuring out what works best. So we're going to keep those concerns in mind as we move forward. And we're going to start, Carol, with you. Walk us through the basics of what's the foundation for a good grand opening, regardless of the format of that grand opening, and why.
Yeah, well, when we plan events for our clients, and again, like Barbara said, this is whether it's virtual or in person, there are 4 things that we measure success by. The first one is your event newsworthy. In order to have it newsworthy and have the press, whether that's broadcast or print press or online press cover it, you have to have the visuals to pull that off. So really good visuals. But also for most reporters, a grand opening is not a newsworthy event. I'm in California, and in the Los Angeles area, they just turn up their nose at you if you ask them to come and cover a grand opening event. So it's up to you or your PR people to come up with the hook that will get the press interested. And anybody on this call, if you want some ideas on that, feel free to get in touch with me. I'm happy to answer any questions. So that's the first part. The second is it engaging in a memorable way? You know, we all know that people buy a home based on emotion. It's an emotional purchase. So what we need to do is provide an event that really captures and engages them in a memorable way so that they really can picture themselves living in your community and in your homes. And then the third is, does it create word of mouth? This is important because you need to have an event that people will start talking about, and start, even while they're at the event, start texting their friends or putting, the event on Facebook saying, this is the coolest thing ever. So is it memorable? Does it create that buzz that keeps on going? And then of course, the fourth is social media, which is so huge in creating that buzz. So you need to start the promotion on social media beforehand, really create buzz during the event, and then keep that buzz going afterwards. So those are the 4 things we look at and it won't be different for an online event.
Thank you, Carol. I think that's great. Lisa, you talk to builders all day long. What are you hearing right now?
So it's been interesting. Everybody's in a different place, different location, different market. Everyone's trying to craft and create and innovate. And I think the one thing that everyone's trying to find is the good news. And there is good news. And our audience, our consumers, they need it. And so what I think the builders are trying to figure out is, what is their good news and how do they share it? And as Carol was saying, you're trying to figure out the different dynamics of your voice and your medium and how you present that information. The products are not different. We have our offerings, and the interesting part about this all is our home buyers now have spent 3 months doing a lot of homework on us.
Right.
They know more about us now than they ever have, because they were at home. Instead of watching Netflix, they were online going through Matterports and virtual showings and other dynamics. So we have a pent up demand, and they're trying to figure out how to adapt to that and deal with that.
That makes a lot of sense. So related to that, is the grand opening still relevant today, and why or why not?
I absolutely believe so. And I defer to my esteemed panelists as well. At this point now, we've had people who have been home for 3 months. We are a very social creature, a human being. We want to be out. We want to go out and see things in person. We want to touch it. We want to feel it. We want to smell it. We want to know what it is. As virtual is great and it was necessary, now we actually want to stand in the space and we want to feel it. We also want to see that others are going to be there, and we want to meet who our neighbors may be. And we want to confirm our decisions and qualify them. And they also want to have a sense of excitement. So ladies, I defer to you.
So you want me to, oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Cindy.
I was just gonna, echo both Carol and Lisa. All of what they're saying is that it's true. The pent up demand is ready. People want to be a part of a live event. Yes, there are now extra sanitation measures that we have to take into play, but this is actually a chance for all of you to actually be creative and look at it and solve the problem a little differently. Know that you're not alone. We've been trying to figure this out for the last 12 weeks too for our corporate meetings and events. And I want to point out one other thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is that this is finally, we have a chance now to actually get data, real data about these people prior, because as they've been stuck at home, looking us up and giving us information, they're giving us more information than we normally could get at an in-person event, because it's easier to go into a live, model home and kind of skip the check-in desk and just walk the house. And now they have to log in. They have to give us their email address. They have to give us their cell phone if we want to stay in contact. So I think there's a lot of, as we explore more of the questions, I think there's going to be a lot of unique ways to engage with your community and to show them why your brand is what it is.
That's really great. Carol, any other comments from you on is the grand opening still relevant and why?
It definitely is. I mean, because, people want to you have to create that experience for people. And so without, without seeing the experience of what it's like to live in the community and to live in that house and to use that house, I don't think they're going to engage as well. So it absolutely still is, whether it's virtual or in person or a hybrid. Absolutely important.
Right. Good point. So Carol, let's stick with you for a minute. And that is the grand opening event has historically been that essential kickoff for any new community or master plan. Do you think that these grand openings that builders are going to be looking at over the course of the rest of this year can have a virtual component that will be relevant to buyers and something that they will respond to?
I absolutely do. Not only do I think that it can be, I think it's going to have to be. During when COVID hit, and the four of us have talked about this in the lead up, when COVID hit, builders went into crisis mode and they were just hunkered down, like, let's figure out operations. Let's figure out how we can make sales. And so we're starting to come out of that crisis mode, and people have got it figured out. There are big changes in companies. And so now it's time to think about strategy, going back to what really makes people, what creates an image and a reputation for our new home community. And the grand opening is that first big impression that does that. So I would say that not only, is it viable, it's necessary. So I think moving into like the virtual events, which I think have a huge advantage for builders who have people who are relocating and they can't come to a physical event. So having kind of that hybrid where you have the virtual event too is really advantageous, actually. And then I would say 3 things necessary for a virtual event to work, because these are the 3 things people are basically looking for is content, first of all. They want to be informed. So, give them all the visual tools. And if it's virtual, you're going to have, you need to be very visual. So use your interactive floor plans. Your drone footage is huge. If you're able to do that, it's really gigantic. And your virtual tours. So use all those and just share your content that you have created and keep generating more. The next thing is engagement. Participants of virtual events don't want to just sit there and not be engaged. And so it's encourage people to use the chat. Like if you're on Zoom, use the chat and ask questions. And it's funny because I've participated now in quite a few conferences online where I've noticed that people ask more questions. Because they don't feel like they're interrupting the speaker, live. And so they are asking questions that the host of the event or the moderator is asking in between. And it's really been pleasing to see that engagement. And that's what people want. And the third thing is production. They want to be entertained. So make it fun, make it visual, make it entertaining, and that'll engage people as well. So for me, those are kind of the three things I think people are looking for.
I think that's really helpful, Carol, and put you on the spot for a minute to maybe share an event, whatever level of detail you want to, but I know Dwell was involved and it was an in-person event then, but your comment when we spoke before was that most of the elements of that in-person event also could translate to virtual. So I'd love for you to take just a minute about that if you could.
It absolutely can. And I actually have that in my notes to talk about for when we're going to be talking about budget. So I'll talk about that event then.
Okay.
But I can there's one event that we did. I think that it would be great for a virtual, and this it ended up being low budget because we got a partner, Angelino. And if you can get a strategic partner who can kind of help you to defray some costs of a grand opening, that's a great thing. So Angelino Magazine, we partnered with them. It's like the highest end magazine in Los Angeles, and we were doing the PR for this very high-end condo project called the Hollywood, and it was in Hollywood. And they had, the developer really wanted to sell the units to people in the arts, whether that's film or architecture or design. That was what he wanted. And so he kind of built this building like a museum with pure white walls. And so it was all about what art was going to go in it. So our charge when doing the grand opening was attract those people. So what we did is at the time, Angelino Magazine had been writing about all these graffiti artists in Los Angeles. And these aren't like street artists who just spray whatever. These are people with studios and they're really legit artists, but they do graffiti. So what we ended up doing is inviting the graffiti artists in Los Angeles to paint the subterranean garages of, because they had 2 levels of subterranean garage at the project. And those are all these, like these gray walls that are just kind of dire. And the only thing we asked them is use Hollywood as a theme. So they did, they came in and they painted the 2 levels of, and then we held an event called the Underground Art Event. And Angelino's readers were invited, which is huge. And then our interest list, and like 500 people came, and we asked the artists to wait and just do their section, wait and do their last section when the people were there. So I can just see that translating to a live event. I think it would be awesome. And you can have, music and we had BMW brought in Mini Coopers and lit up the walls, and we had other organizations involved, and it was just so engaging. And they sold 5 houses or condos that right after. So
that's the part everybody was. I was going to say that's the part everybody was waiting to hear. They sold 5 houses.
They sold 5, which is huge, and what we did is we took them all the way through that building. We had a tour set up where, and you can do this virtually too, is, have kind of different rooms set up and have your main event going on, but then have these different rooms. So I think there's so many creative ways to do this.
That's really fun to hear about that. And the idea of the rooms also, I know Cindy, is something that you and I have talked about as well. What I would love, Cindy, for you to do is take us out of the home building world for a minute. You deal with tech companies and B2B primarily. And you and I, anyway, know that March 6th, the day that one of the first COVID-related event cancellations took place. When South by Southwest was canceled, your world changed, and you have been figuring out this virtual space ever since. Help us with imagining what might be possible with the virtual aspect of grand openings for builders.
Absolutely. I want to first touch on what Carol was talking about, because when she mentioned about content and making it very visual, ask yourself, have y'all actually, made them Instagrammable moments? So let's say now that the homes are, because I know in Texas, we are now reopened. So you can do open houses as long as they are spaced apart. I would encourage appointments and whatnot. So if they're going through the house, do you even have signs that actually make them so that they know that you want them to stand there to take a selfie against the backsplash? And then to hashtag it. Like, do you use consistent hashtags to really promote your brand so they know, because oftentimes we do this for tech companies is, be seen or, be heard. And so what is your brand for your building community? Because I know right now your goal is to sell the homes, but you want also to kind of go viral, as Carol and Lisa both mentioned. And so this is the first and easiest way. And then going to the actual virtual event, the grand opening, one of the things I wanted to share with y'all, if you are going to try to do the hybrid, I was thinking, so instead of, I know traditionally you have the moon bounce house. Have you ever thought about having a roaming magician? Because roaming magicians hired well can actually still keep people engaged while they're waiting in line to get into the house, since probably right now you're only allowing one family at a time to go view the house. So if someone does arrive early, you have something to keep them entertained. I still think you can have the DJ. Music does so much wonders. People get energy from music. And so I would never take that away. And even if you're on virtual, think about how it started. Did you just jump right into the broadcast, or did you take the time to say good morning or welcome and shouting out the names as you see them come online, Make it a little bit more personable so that people feel connected. And then the other is, I love surprise and delight moments. And I think Lisa was going to mention this, so I don't want to take too much thunder. But when we plan all of our virtuals, we literally look and break down every piece and figure out what is that surprise and delight moment. So is it, and this is one that I was, thinking of, I was like, if I was personally, the buyer and I was going through the home, what is it that I would want to see that kind of surprises me so that I can envision myself being in this house, And I was thinking, okay, so everyone already knows the typical of you stage it and all this stuff. But now that we know that there's going to probably be a work from home situation, what would it look like to show that this is your new work from home area, right. So that you're showing it off and really bringing it to them and making sure they understand, you're listening, and that you're with the times right now and showcasing all of these things. But I don't want to take up too much time, because I know Lisa also had some comments on this as well. But I've got a ton of other ideas too that we've been doing just to kind of make sure people are thinking about the virtual and hybrid.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Cindy. Thank you. And you're right, Lisa is up next. So Lisa, with some of those ideas, and I know plenty of your own in mind, how do you think builders might be able to create a better experience today in this new grand opening space?
So I completely agree. And one of the things I think the surprise was, and I'm hoping this is the one you were mentioning, Cindy, and if I'm not, remind me, is I love the idea of having special guests at our grand openings. Okay. I think the idea of crafting and creating those celebrity guests to walk you through the home are what could create the next great space. So imagine you're at you're doing a virtual grand opening or hybrid grand opening, forgive me, and you were there and the architect was there and he was explaining to you why they designed the things and how things could be imagined. And right now it's, it's this, but it could be that. Imagine having the interior merchandiser there who is showing you or giving you ideas that you can then translate into the design center, or you can pick their brain and say, hey, listen, what do you think? How could we design our home? I know you did it like this in the model. What are your other ideas on flooring or decor or wall coverings or colors? Believe me, in the old days, we would always say 50% of the people who walk through a model home were there to be inspired by design. Yeah, they are. But you know what? You can convert those 50% 50% of those people to be buyers too. If you have somebody there who excites them and tells them this is why you want to be here, and the ability to have that opportunity to connect with those people. And it doesn't have to necessarily be the head of the firm who's there, but somebody within the firm who worked on the project who can discuss the uniqueness of the home or the community. Imagine if you had the landscape designer in the backyard talking about the flowers you could plant or the trees or, the park that's going to be built. Anything that's going to really plant the seed of this is my new space is going to solidify that buyer's confidence in making the next steps.
Well, what you just said is such an important point in that buyer confidence. Everything that we're doing needs to fuel that. And I know, Lisa, you talk about that quite a lot.
Well, and the other thing is, I think that you're exactly right. Carol mentioned it, and Cindy also amplified, is the person that you choose to be that person on screen who's guiding people through, you do need to have that person, does need to be confident on camera. They do need to be knowledgeable. They do need to have talking points, and they do need to be someone that person's going to connect with when they do arrive on scene, so that you're creating that connection and that touch point, because you're creating a relationship.
Yeah, very true. So we've heard some good ideas about how we might approach the opening. We have to get people to know about it. So let's talk promotion. Carol, maybe we start with you. You're our PR person, among many other things, but talk to us about event promotion for virtual or hybrid or standard events. Like what is the same or different, and what are some of the most important things that people want to be keeping in mind as they're opening their new communities now?
I will actually have to say that I don't think it's going to be that much different. I think we've all gone to the digital world already. We've all and COVID has forced us to go, it's accelerated it. So I think if I were going to say any difference at all, I would say for a virtual event, because people are probably, weary of online events and Zoom and all, that start it earlier and more frequent consistency in terms of your digital outreach. And that would, for me, be the main difference.
Got it.
To Carol's point, is that consistency is key. So if you are going to do such, for example, I was going to suggest later was, if you're going to do a weekly happy hour session where you have a live musician playing from one of your homes, make sure it's always the same day, same time, so they know to expect it. And when you promote it, it's repetitive, and it kind of sticks in their head. They go, oh yeah, it's Friday, 4:00. I really want to join in there, and maybe I can even meet some of my future neighbors because I'll see them online and we can connect that way. Because what you're doing is you're essentially building a digital community prior and having it reconnect, so that there's more of a reunion when they actually finally meet face to face. Yeah.
Imagine if they picked that up and they continued that, and that became something
correct
on, like the 7:00 in New York now, right? They say that
that's exactly right. Yeah,
really good.
I could picture doing, to Cindy's point, the weeks leading up to it, doing kind of teasers. Almost like what are the Gillette signs, that you tease out a little bit of information to get people excited, and then you have the main event. I think that might be a great idea.
Anything from any of the three of you related to promotions? I think those are some fun ideas.
So when I read this, I did think of the announcements, but I also was thinking about physical promotion. So these are low-hanging fruit. So if you have not already bought your hand sanitizer with your builder community name on it, you need to go do that now, because they're sold out, and you need to go ahead and put your order in now. That, can you imagine? I mean, I know as a woman, I have it in my handbag all the time, and it stays there until it runs out. So if you, again, have that, your brand is there with you all the time. And so when you share it with someone, go, oh, what is this? And there's your brand again. Also face mask. They are coming out with some really good designer face mask. And I'm telling you, there are so many creative ways, whether it be picking a tile that you're known for, or picking a landscape design. Don't do just something basic and black or brown. Do something that actually kind of makes your brand, it ties to your brand and your culture, and use it, because people are now matching face masks to outfits. So how cool would it be, again, if you're known for, let's say, limestone, and you made it in such a cool way that, again, that it looks really cool when it's on the face. So it's just, again, think about differently of how you would do it. And things, I equate the face mask right now to when we changed over to recycled grocery bags. Everyone had a recycled grocery bag, right?
Right.
I am telling you, I have gotten probably 10 face masks in the last 4 weeks from suppliers, and they are not all created equal. So take the time to make sure the quality matches, again, your brand.
Yeah.
And because it will get shared, because yeah, once it's used up, then, you toss it. So it's like, it's a good, easy promotional item to keep your name around.
It could even be that the picture of the homes.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. It's your walking billboard.
Yeah.
Good point. That's some really good input from all of you. Thank you for that. So Cindy, I'm going to ask you this question, but Carol and Lisa also please chime in on it. But that is for builders who are in markets where they are open and ready to do in-person events. We've had a lot of questions come through during registration around how do we manage those groups? How do we do that where it is safe and where people feel safe? I know one of our clients had, cleaning service on site the whole time, and they had individually wrapped refreshments and had the sign-ups on the iPad outside the sales office, not in the sales office. I mean, they had a lot of different protocols and staggered invites. So you're from 10 to 12 and 12 to 2 and so on. But what else can we add to ideas for builders, how they can approach those in-person grand openings, whether or not it has a virtual component as well, but to ensure the feeling of and the actual safety of those events?
Yeah. So you've touched on a lot of those. I was definitely going to say space out your appointments, because that is one of the things that seems to be the most fearful when we're talking to our clients about putting people together in a room. They want to see that it's been cleaned. So let's say they saw another family just walk out. They don't want to actually go right in right away. They want it to be seen that it's sanitized. I would go to the extra level of kind of like if you went into a hotel room and you saw that these sheets were last sanitized, or put on the bed on XYZ date. I would have that. So when the person goes in, sprays down the house, lets it, sit for the 5 minutes, and then you can make sure it's indicated so they can see that this home was last, completely sanitized 100%, by qualified suppliers at this time, because they just want to have that safety. And I will say it varies from place to place, right. Because the bigger the house, honestly, people don't fear it. It's if it's more compact. You already mentioned the individually wrapped foods and whatnot. I would go with stuff that is tailored to the person, so that they feel like they can still be a part of something, but not feel like you've taken something away. Right. So I still think it's okay to bake cookies in the house to make it smell good, but then have the individually wrapped cookies, so that it's still there. Like, don't feel like you have to hide that. That's okay. I do think if you are going to have a queuing line outside, is to go ahead and figure out creatively how to make your social distance signs creative. And this is an example that actually has nothing to do with builders, but I thought it was very clever. So Trader Joe's, so many of y'all probably know, is a grocery store, and they're in Texas. And what they did is they put jokes. So every cube that you got to walk, you had a joke, and then the next cube, when you got to it, was the answer to the riddle. And I thought that was so clever that they done that, because they knew people were waiting in line. And that's kind of where I was going with the roaming magician. Now I'm one-on-one, I'm not touching you, I'm showing you a trick, you're laughing, you're entertained. And that's the kind of idea behind the giving them entertainment while, striking that balance. The other things that I was going to mention is, to Lisa's point, I was thinking that's a celebrity moment. I also thought what would be fun is if you have a lighter group, like if you already been together and y'all are just kind of regrouping, if you've not heard about bringing the llama to your Zoom meeting, it's a very fun way to interrupt a Zoom bomb, and they're very affordable. For less than $100, you can have a llama join in, and so on the grid would be the llama. So if it could be something else, it's just something to get people talking again, and people need a laugh right now because it has been so serious. And so I think if we can bring the joy out of owning a home again and getting them excited, I think that's what's going to win you over, because that is what people want to see and feel a part of.
Good point. Lisa, what do you want to add to that?
I love everything that Cindy just said. I'm completely on board. I think gamification and polls are huge. Okay. So it goes along that Trader Joe's thing of having the joke and then having the punchline. Anything that you can do to entertain people, because again, they're going to be queuing in line. This is the way of our world. I mean, I had to stand in line to go into Target the other day. Okay. This is not going to be abnormal for our people to walk into a home. Going to the Apple store yesterday to go see a Genius bar, you had to stand outside, you had to get your temperature taken, and you had to wait in line. So again, this is going to be very normal for everyone to do when they come to our home. So it's not just us. So we don't need to fear that. But yes, anything we can do to entertain them, to encourage them. I like the idea of, on the virtual side, having the gamification of polls, like, do you prefer a white kitchen to a dark kitchen? Do you like this tile? Do you like that backsplash? Anything you can do that allows them to be entertained and also to be informed. And maybe you can include in that gamification information that you want to pass on to them that you're helping them to digest. The idea of this is to make this a pleasant experience and not a reminder of what's happening to us. Right. So however we can make it pleasant and acceptable is going to be good. I walked through Pottery Barn yesterday after I left the Apple store on my way out to my car. And the interesting thing, Pottery Barn, what they've decided to do, they let 10 people into their store. And what they say is, please join us. Please wear a face mask. And if you'd be so kind as please, this is a touchless environment. And they have really nice, beautiful little signs that say that, so that it's for your safety and also for our cleanliness. And I think that goes back to what Cindy was saying, because then if you know that and people kind of understand it, then that also goes down to that safety protocol. And everybody's, they can understand. And I love the idea. Yes, bake the cookies, let the smells come through. We're very sensory, music, cookies, the whole thing, all of those things that we can normalize. Yeah. This approach is going to calm everyone's nerves and make it pleasant. Go ahead, Carol. What do you have?
I was thinking, I don't know about everybody else, but I hate lines. Like I get unreasonably anxious and cranky. Let's just put it that way. When I have to wait, that and technology, when it goes wrong, will send me over the edge. But waiting in a line is really hard for me. So I would almost love to see a builder who would, if you say you have a tot lot or a park, have people wait there. And Barbara, I sent you this article from the New York Times from Berlin. These musicians are going out into public places and they're doing one-on-one concerts where it's just an instrument. So it's not singing, because singing, of course, that, aspiration, but it's just musicians, and people are craving this kind of connection and live music. And so they're sitting at 15 feet from the musician and they're listening. So I could see instead you could have your iPhone or your cell phone, and you're getting a text when it's your turn to go into the model. But in the meantime, you're out in the park and you're listening to live music, which, I'm dying for. I'm dying to go to a concert. I would be so happy if I had that. So creating that kind of experience and giving people the expectation of how long it's going to be that they have to wait. I think that's gigantic. I know we have a client, CPS, which is Computer Presentation Systems, and they have what they call Quick Line. And it's used in Whole Foods to, you stand in these lines, and when your color comes up, it's your turn. And you're told exactly how long it's going to be till you have to wait. And even if you have to wait 20 minutes, as long as you know that, it's setting the expectation. I think that would be pretty important.
Yeah, to Carol's point, that's why I would encourage you, if you don't have an appointment booking system, that really is the best. And then making sure you do have their cell phone so you can text them an hour before saying, we're so excited to see you, and include the photo of the house and directions. So they all have to do is click on their smartphone and it leads them there. Just things to make it super easy, because I agree, especially now that in Texas, I'm in Texas, the heat, standing in line is no fun.
Right.
So
frictionless, easy, understanding what you're going to anticipate, so again they can enjoy the experience rather than endure it.
Correct. Right. Because it's what they remember of the brand. If it's easy and it's pleasant, and you do care, because what you don't want is you don't want to have a lack of no signage, no care. And then they're like, well, wait, because we are still in the middle of this, why are they not going those extra steps, you know? So
Cindy, you just brought up something, and I think this goes back to the intent of any event.
Yeah.
That we all do this. You have to have a plan.
Yes.
And you have to execute on that plan, and you have to think not in what you're trying to do, but
Correct.
in what your attendee is going to experience. And remember that. And if you can't execute on it, if you're going to try to do this and you're not going to be sensitive, you're going to fail. So
yeah.
really, I mean, I'm a big believer in you need to try, but at the same time, let's not go out the gate and stub our toes. And
Correct.
we're all experiencing the world. We're all going out and seeing how things are done. And you can, again, take cherry picking those things that you're seeing that are good and figuring out, well, how do we want to deploy it in our plan? But you do need to have a plan.
Yeah.
Really good points. Thank you. I know I think we may have covered what you all want to say on this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. After this, we're going to move on to budget around these things. But the question is, what do you think is going to work best for grand openings right now?
I can start with that one. And I really think it's going to depend on the circumstances. This is going to vary widely to what your circumstances are. For instance, if you are opening a community in an area where housing shortage is critical and there's so much pent up demand for your homes, you're probably not going to have to do much that's elaborate. And an example that I can use for this is, I don't know if you all know, DeYoung Homes is a builder in the Fresno area. And they were planning a grand opening for the last phase of homes within this community of theirs that had huge pent-up demand. I mean, people were dying to get those homes. And, but they were still planning on this grand opening. Well, a few days before that, the shelter-in-place orders came down. So they had to pivot really quickly. And so what they ended up doing is 2 online events that were really pretty simple. Because they didn't have to get elaborate. And the first one was a VIP event where they showed all the content that they already have. They're really a great company for creating content. They create a lot. They have drones and virtual tours that are really, really good. So they used all that. They planned it out well. I think they worked 24/7 around the clock till this. And they had it all planned out very well. Their presentation was great, but it was simple. And they used their content. And then what they did is they told the attendees that there are a finite number of appointments for the next. So the next event really was the one-on-one appointments online to buy a home. So, and they said there are going to be a finite number. So, and what they ended up doing is picking the most qualified people from that VIP event to get these appointments. And then they did the appointments the next day online, and they sold out 68% of those homes in 24 hours. It was crazy. It was so good. But so what I'm saying is, under those circumstances, they didn't have to do a whole lot, you know, because the demand. But if you're in a community that you're just unveiling for the first time and you haven't built up a reputation and the demand isn't huge in your area, you're probably going to have to get more elaborate and really think about what's the zeitgeist in this community, what is going to make it come to life for people online and make them picture them. They need to picture themselves living in your community and in your home, and you have to develop that engagement with them on an event. So that's what I would say. It just varies.
That's great, Carol. Thank you. Lisa, you want to go next? And then
so I'm going to tell you a couple really cool stories that I've just heard recently from some builders. So here in Southern California, I was just talking to a master plan developer, and they experienced over the last week, they sold 54 homes across their master plans in 1 week. Now, that's really good. Let me tell you, they sold 45 homes in February and so 54 in May. So that means that they had returned to some sort of normalcy. Interestingly enough, 60% of the sales in one neighborhood here in the Inland Empire, they attributed to them to rental buyers who they had gone and done a huge promotion. They said, okay, here's the deal. The price point of this product completely equates to rental buyers in the West who now will move further out away from their from where they're living currently and paying high rents. if they could scrape together $20,000, they were actually going to have less payment each month for a brand new home in a nicer community with great amenities, and they converted all those 20 sales in a weekend. Okay, so again, figuring out who your buyer is, finding that unique selling proposition and targeting those, that's going to be key. And the other idea of, so I'll give you on the other end of that was the first time rental low hanging, those folks. Then you have the 55 plus buyer. We had Sterling Grove, Toll Brothers in Arizona. This was during the shelter in place before Arizona opened up. They weren't able to tour. They actually, the sales folks on ground created a parade, a weekly parade. You could drive through the neighborhood during the week. They were out in front. They had the brochures that they could hand to them through their windows. They could drive through and see the homes, and then they could go online and they could make an appointment. Again, going back to what Carol was saying, qualifying those buyers, determining who they were going to meet with and do it. Their conversion rates were huge. I think they converted like 80% of the people who drove through. Again, and now that's a discretionary buyer who didn't need to move, who was making a choice to move. And then you have in Nashville, Durham Farms, they created this really fun environment. They actually Freehold went to all their current homeowners and they said, hey, listen, we're going to invite people to drive through the neighborhood and see what it could be like to live here. So would you go out and sit on your front porch and wave at the people and let them know and just, give them the sense of what this community is? And they did that. And it was actually very cute. They had a number of the little girls in the neighborhood who set up lemonade stands. They weren't supposed to necessarily do that, but again, how charming it is to be driving through this neighborhood and seeing little girls with lemonade stands. Who doesn't want to live there and see your neighbors waving to you on their front porch? So again, it's determining in how you want to, what it is, what the buyer profile is, and setting it up. And I think there's opportunity because you just have to craft it in a way. And again, knowing what you're able to do and putting it at that point. I also saw, sorry, I'll just give you one more example. It was Trilogy in Seattle. Again, a discretionary buyer, probably a relo buyer. It was a virtual tour done online with the sales manager guiding the conversation. And then the special guest was an interior merchandiser, and she was talking about all the things you could do with your home. We were on a simple Zoom call. 55 human beings asking questions. What would you do with the kitchen? How would we do this? Like you were saying earlier, the engagement was so high. There were so many conversations. And again, the Matterport that they were walking through, which was very simple, they weren't going through, it was a simple Zoom call using the Matterport. Someone was driving the Matterport for the person. It was a guided, curated walk with someone telling the story. And again, hugely successful. I haven't gotten haven't heard the details if they've sold any or if they converted any of those sales. But again, each one of those, again, to the buyer profile really worked. Cindy?
I just want to echo Carol and Lisa. I don't want to add anything more because I think those were great examples. And I actually, funny enough, my call right before this, we were talking about scarcity. So just remember what Carol said. Scarcity does create FOMO and you want to be there. So if you do know you have limited number of homes and there's more demand, share that because that will we were using it for our side, of course, registration to drive registration numbers up. But for you guys, it works the same way, psychology for selling a house. Because if I know that this community has been building up and if I'm not one of the first, 1,000 buyer, I might not get it. I'm going to put my name down and put a deposit down,
Mm-hmm. So that goes back to the hybrid event because, we've gone to enough meetings lately where the registrations have filled up and you can't get in. You miss the opportunity to watch it.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can set a scale to, we're only going to take the first 150, 250, whatever you want to make it. But if you can't make it in, what's happening? Can you imagine? So there's that. And then the appointments to go visit if you're for the in-person part of it as well. Right, Cindy?
Yep. Totally. Again, scarcity creates FOMO, and that's what really is happening. And so
sold out is a very beautiful word or term.
I think that's a favorite of everybody. That's where virtual, hybrid, whatever, however that shows up is really good. Well, that's some really good input, and thank you. Let's move on to the budget question. Mm-hmm. So we've got a builder in whatever market they want to do let's say a hybrid event. They can do in person, but they also want to have a virtual component to that. And as is the case for so many builders right now, the budget is, like minimal. They've got to make it really stretch. So what would you recommend that they focus on? What are the must-haves for doing that kind of an event?
Do you want me to start on this one?
Sure. Yeah.
So I was first going to want to share my dream idea of if budget was unlimited, because I do think I want to throw it out there and I won't spend too much time, but then I'll go back to since we know that budgets are limited. If budget was not limited at all, I honestly would ask all the builders out there, the community builders, to create an app, because here's why. You start with that app, and once they're vested into it, they've downloaded it on theto phone, and they also now bought one of the lots. This is where they get to customize, and then you get to meet other homeowners, and you get to basically build your community there before you move in. So it's all in one place. Now, the quote unquote affordable way to do it is really Facebook. Facebook is the easiest way, lowest barrier of entry to get in and do the same thing. But I like the app because the app, you can brand it and skin it to match your brand. And you can push updates that, again, only go to the people that you want to see. So whereas Facebook, it's a little bit more of the wild, wild west, and you have to almost have a moderator to own it, to making sure that you don't have people there that are just there because they're your competitors looking to see what you're doing, But it's essentially creating that community, and that's what you're wanting to do, is you want to give them a chance to actually connect with you on a brand level and with other people, so that you can leverage that. And so just thinking about those simple tasks. So hopefully I answered that. And I also mentioned because once you move in, you want to have a clean version of next door neighbor. You want to have that control. So why not own it on the mobile app? That's why because there's going to be ways that, they're going to need blinds, they're going to need a landscaper, they're going to need to buy those new appliances. Why not work out some sort of partnership so that you can promote those people too?
Good point. Carol, how about you?
Yeah, if we're talking about builders with very little budget, I think there are a lot of things that can be done, both whether it's strictly virtual or hybrid. And this, Barbara, is the example that you and I had talked about before, is I think this kind of event, which is very low budget, would really translate to virtual. We represented this community called Latitude 33, which was in the Venice area in California, and very, very high design and beautiful building. And so what we did is we invited the editor of Dwell magazine, the executive director of the Architecture and Design Museum of Los Angeles, to join a conversation with the architect of Latitude 33 and the developer. And we did basically a panel where they discussed design and architecture. And and here's the key, we've said this several times, they're really dynamic people. And so that's who you have to choose if it's a virtual event. Somebody who's going to have eye contact with the camera, who's comfortable with the camera and is a dynamic speaker. Mm-hmm. And then I think, having like a open Q&A during that, so that people are engaged if they're not in the room. And you could do social distancing in the room as well. But I think that would translate really, really well. And also because you've got the editor of Dwell, you're probably going to get some coverage on that event. So, it's sort of a 2-in-1 type of thing. So, and obviously you'd want to make sure what they're talking about is the vision behind your community and what brings it to life and what makes it special. And so I think it could work really well, actually.
That's great. And before we move to Lisa, is there anything, Carol, that you would want to add if the budget was not nearly so much a consideration? Anything that you would really like to put on?
So many things. Yeah. This is where the fun part comes in, right? One thing I was thinking about that might be kind of fun is, even for on-site events, in-person events, invitations are pretty much digital these days. Mm-hmm. So what if you flipped that with a virtual event and did, like if you're going to do 2 events, which you would normally do in a grand opening, I actually would do 3, a VIP event, a press only event, and then the public event. And what about for the VIP event, if you did a beautifully engraved invitation that went snail mail, and then what if you, and you know, I think it'd be just fun to flip that. And then what if you sent those VIP people a gift package ahead of time, something that they could use while they're, you know, while the event is taking place. For instance, and those who know me well know where I'm going with this. You're going to maybe send wine to the VIP, and then you have like a well-known local chef demonstrating, you know, a wine and food pairing in your kitchen. And, you know, then people are engaged and they're drinking the wine with the chef. I think that would be so fun. And then what we were talking earlier, then for the main event, you would have the different rooms. So you'd have your main room with music and, you know, maybe the architect giving, you know, an overview, and your different speakers and your different events going on in that main room. But then you'd have your different rooms set up where so people can peel off and do their virtual tour when they want to. And then I would also have a separate room for appointments only. So these people are going into that room to make an appointment to either purchase a home online or to make an one-on-one, you know, appointment to tour the home. So, I mean, this is sort of in my dream world, what I would do.
That's a pretty good.
There's so many things. You know?
That's pretty good. So Lisa, I want to hear from you. I also want to let the people who are online with us know that if you've got some questions, this is a great time to drop those into the Q&A. We can stay on beyond the hour if anybody wants to do that, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to put your question out to the panelists. So Lisa, definitely want to hear from you on that same question.
Same quick hits. I'll go really rapidly because I'd love to get through the Q&A and hear what people have to think. I totally agree with everything that you're saying. The Facebook Live, the Instagram Lives, using the influencers to be your content, making sure that you have a plan and a voice is very, very important. I think that is just it. If you can imagine that you're doing this as a broadcast, as though you're doing this as a live hit on a TV show, is the way to kind of approach it. And it doesn't mean that you have to have it be the, you know, the first person coming from the local TV station. But if you have somebody in your organization who has that talent, having them be that voice and having them lead you through is great. And yeah, you can do that all the way from a cell phone all the way up to having a camera crew on site. So you can scale it budget wise. I think it has to do with the fact of going back and then going back to the intent. And yeah, you can throw more money at anything and make it look better, but it doesn't mean that it can't be great on a shoestring budget as well. And, you know, I've seen a couple builders locally who literally did it with their sales manager on their cell phone, walking through in a dusty shoe, and they sold 3 houses. And so don't think that you can't do it. Try.
To Lisa's point is, we always tell our clients, especially tech, it's that authenticity sells.
Absolutely.
So what is your brand? What is your, again, what's your neighborhood going to be like? You've developed, like you've planned out what the development looks like. So now what are these families going to look like? And so that's what you want. And you want to, so don't try to dress up and do all that. Yeah. You need to be yourself in selling the property. So.
That's great. Well, I am not seeing questions. So we are at the top of the hour. If you all have questions later, please send them to me. Watch for a link that will give you the recap in a blog, but also watch for a link to the recording so you can share this with your team or watch a certain part of it all over again. We'll be sure that our blog also includes contact information for Carol, for Cindy, for Lisa. And ladies, thank you, all of you, for sharing your time so generously and your ideas with the people who have given their time to join us today. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day and good selling.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Barbara.
Carol and Lisa,
Thanks,
great being on the panel with y'all. Thanks.